Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new edition. That's right, edition with an A to the Primetime Rundown. Yes, the Primetime Rundown Instant Reaction. Your favorite hosts and rotating guests coming together. No, not just on Friday nights for our usual shows that you see here on StreamYard at 7 o'clock, but to give you an instant reaction, up to the minute reaction on all of the breaking news, all of the relevant sports topics of what's going on. We're breaking it here right now as myself, alongside Rob DeLuca, Mike Zabo, I'm Ian Schreier. We are three very relieved, and I think we can highlight though that word relieved over and over again. U.S. soccer fans, as you can see, I've got my American Outlaw shirt on. I've got my pennant, my One Nation, One Team USA flag ready to roll, guys. We're going to get into all the specifics of what happened in that result against Honduras, but ultimately a 4-1 win to close out the first window of the CONCACAF qualifying, the octagonal for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. And as we said, it was a 4-1 win to close out the opening window for the U.S. men's national team against Honduras. Gentlemen, Rob, Mike, we know that after the draw against Canada, that this team, after missing the World Cup last 4 years ago, that this team needed to come out of this first window after drawing against Canada the other night, needed to come out and get 5 points. That meant they needed to go on the road to Honduras and come out with 3. We see them come out flat, no urgency whatsoever in that first half. Somehow things turn around. We see a lot better start to the second half, and we get 4 unanswered goals ultimately in that 4-1 win over Honduras. Rob, first off, give me your instant reaction on the victory.
Look, victories are victories. You take them how you get them. This was an incredible victory for the United States. You know, it was very important that they come away with 3 points, and they did that. I was not overly impressed with how they played, even in the second half. I felt until they started scoring, they still looked very flat, very uninterested. There were definitely points where a lot of fans, myself included, were potentially talking about some managerial changes had they not come away with 3 points here, but they fortunately do come away with 3 points, a very important 3 points, as this now puts them in a qualifying position at third place. But nonetheless, I am still on the fence about Greg Berhalter here. I don't know if he is the answer, and we will just have to wait and see for their next game, which is on October 7th.
Rob, you had mentioned, especially on that goal differential after putting up 4 goals tonight, now this team is above the line, when we were so afraid that this team was all of a sudden going to be in the bottom 3 of CONCACAF after the first window of qualifying in this 14-game marathon that leads us into the World Cup next winter. Mike, look, we're going to get to the criticism. There's so much for us to get to in such a short period of time. But, Mike, I first wanted to get your instant reaction on the game as well.
Well, frustrated but really happy at the same time. I've honestly never seen a second half turnaround from a U.S. team like that ever. They played as poorly as you could possibly can in the first half, and in the second half it was just night and day. How they just completely turned it around. Greg Berhalter, his tactics are going to be questioned. How he lined up was going to be questioned. I thought originally it was like a 3-5-2 formation or something like that, and then all of a sudden it was being turned into a 4-3-3 with guys out of position. Tyler Adams being played out on the wing was an egregious decision. Thank God he finally fixed that in the second half, a bit later than I thought, but it's not common sense. Like, isn't it common sense to play guys in their natural position where you've seen success from them? And that's what's going to happen. And Ricardo Pepi firmly answered this team's number 9 questions that it's had for literally ever since they missed out on the World Cup in 2017. What a debut for him. He was quiet, here and there, popping in and out of the match, but boy, did he make his appearance known at the right time for the U.S. What a debut for him.
We're definitely going to get into Ricardo Pepi and all that he accomplished, especially in the second half, although he started the game. But, guys, what I want to get to next is talk a little bit, maybe not so much about the first half and really dwell on the terrible, but we do want to mention, though, the fact that Honduras did open the scoring in the first half after a defensive lapse by John Brooks, led to an opportunity for Brian Moya to score the goal for Honduras to put them up 1-0 at the half. And right coming out, guys, coming out of halftime, we saw Greg Berhalter go right to his bench. We finally saw in 3 games this team show some urgency and go to his bench and bring in Anthony Robinson and Leggett and Brendan Aronson. And we saw this team turn around and score 4 goals, the first of which, the game tying goal, was scored by one of the guys who came off the bench only a few minutes in Anthony Robinson. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you here. How important, I mean, obviously on the whole, they were huge, but based on what you saw and you saw their play on the field, how important was it for Berhalter to go to the bench as early as he did to start the second half and the results that came with it?
I mean, it was huge. You saw in the Canada game on Sunday that not going to the bench right away really hurt the U.S. and waiting until the 83rd minute against Canada really cost them. And Berhalter at least learned his lesson from that and said, I need to jump the gun on this and get, ahead of it right at halftime. And credit to him that he did, despite his lapses in the first half. Robinson, I don't know why he was dropped to begin with in the starting lineup. He's definitely the U.S.'s best option at the outside back when Sergiño Dest is not there, especially on the left-hand side. He offers good attacking threat, good energy back there. I don't know why it puzzles me why he wasn't in there from the beginning.
Rob, we had already heard from Mike with respect to talking about Ricardo Pepi, the 18-year-old phenom who scored a goal and an assist in his first U.S. men's national team cap tonight. He was in the 11, but this team needed this positive, this win, these 3 points. Obviously, now they're above the line, but even more so than that. We were talking at halftime about Greg Berhalter's on the way out. This team just needs to start over. They're within, at this point, it's so early to say it, but they're within grasp of actually missing their second straight World Cup. And they come out, and granted, yeah, they didn't play well, but we saw this team put up 4 unanswered goals, and this is something we haven't seen from a U.S. team in a while. How does the U.S. build off this going into the next qualifying window in October?
Well, that's just it. It comes down to the fact that Greg Berhalter's job was saved for one more game because of this recovery. So while I don't necessarily agree that that should always be the case, it's the way the world of sports works. So he will be spared another day, and honestly, I don't love it, but again, that's fine. You move, you go forward. That's the direction you have to move with these sports these days, and I think that what the United States is going to do here now, they have, it's basically a month until 4 weeks exactly to their next game. So all these players are going to go back to their respective clubs, use that to keep playing well, build off this victory, help out your clubs, and then come back in 4 weeks and keep that same intensity that you guys use at the end of the second half here to put this game away and put it there late. And that fourth goal, while people will say, it's just a cherry on top. When you're in a fight like this, that goal differential is everything here in CONCACAF. So that was a very big goal. This could end up being a very big goal. That fourth goal could be everything when all is said and done in a couple of months. So I think that's very important. And now, of course, we do have to turn towards the concern for Christian Pulisic, who has gone down in tonight's game with injury. And right now it leaves a big amount of question marks on whether or not he can continue.
Mike, I want to put you in the hot seat here with the same question about how this team can build off of what we've seen so far. Obviously, as Rob alluded to, injuries are a serious question mark. The health of Christian Pulisic, where are things with Gio Reyna going to stand in a month? Where are things with Zach Steffen going to stand in a month? Sergiño Dest. We'll get into Weston McKennie in a minute. But more importantly, when you look at the schedule also for October and you see before that very important home match against Costa Rica, who right now is below the line, they have 2 very winnable matches right off the bat against Jamaica and Panama. Right now at the top of the table, it's Mexico, Canada, and then followed by the U.S. Obviously, Panama not far behind, but a very winnable first match to start out at home against Jamaica. So how do they build? I mean, barring more injuries or anything unforeseen, how does this team build off this win and hopefully get healthier and carry that into the next stage of qualifying?
Well, despite the disappointing window that they had, at least they ended it off with a high note. To build on it, Greg's got to do exactly what he did in the second half in terms of tactics. Stop playing guys out of position. Go with what you know. I liked roll down on that other side, especially for the way that they played. I don't know why Aronson didn't play from the start there. Love his counter pressing. To build on this, you mentioned injuries are a big thing. One thing that's not talked about enough is whether some of the European leagues are going to want to release a lot of players based on, I know the UK is the biggest one talking about it, about not releasing players from their clubs to go to countries that are on their red list, are on the country's red list, which would be a problem for 2 out of 3 of the US's matches. In the next qualifying window. So that obviously means if Pulisic is healthy, you don't have him. If Josh Sargent wouldn't be there, and who knows if other European leagues follow. So it was important to get a win for them here um, to end this off on a high note. They got to keep on building on this, but you got to have Ricardo Pepi in there. You like his energy. You build around him. They got to play some of their more exciting wingers more, especially if Pulisic can't go or Gio Reyna can't go. You got to see more of Brendan Aronson and Conrad De La Fuente, Champions League wingers that are, especially De La Fuente, who's on incredible form right now. So hopefully they both, all these guys have good club seasons when they get back to to their respective clubs right now. Have a good next couple of weeks and come in to this window revitalized. Because I think some of these guys, whatever it was, even when they were playing good, some of these guys were just fatigued. In the beginning too, Josh Sargent after 20 minutes looked like he was gassed. I know they were playing a certain way to hold in, but that was some troubling things too. That some fatigue set in on some guys. So they just got to build off of what they did in the second half and use those tactics, and they're going to get a lot of success.
Mike, I want to keep it here with you for a second and speak a little bit about, the loss of Pulisic right now and him coming off. It seemed like he still wanted to get out there and play, but they subbed him off. But you spoke a lot about Ricardo Pepi, and I don't think we can understate what he did out there on the field for the U.S. In terms of scoring that goal, that go-ahead goal, and also adding an assist later and helping them to the 4-1 victory. Do you think that if Pulisic is out for any extended period of time, that a player of Pepi's stature, only 18 years old, can step up and help fill the void left by Pulisic? It's a large void.
Absolutely. I mean, Pulisic did it in the. I get it was a failed campaign in 2017, but he was the guy amongst the quote unquote lost generation guys like Clint Dempsey and the whole gang getting older and whatnot. And he was the guy, even though he was just 18. Christian Pulisic, he was the guy. I definitely see Ricardo Pepi being able to fill that void. He's been scorching hot in the MLS for the past couple of months. People have been calling for him to get his opportunity. He's gotten his shot, and he's earned an extended stay. And that number 9 spot, you could definitely rely on him, even despite his 18-year-old age.
Gents, we saw a change. Obviously, Mike had alluded to it about the switch in the formation to a 5-2-3. We saw them employ 5 backs, put 3 forwards up top with respect to Pulisic as well as Sargent, and in the hopes of finally trying to find some goals. And we also saw one thing against Honduras that we really didn't see in the El Salvador and the Canada matches, was that this team was finally playing a little more direct, and maybe that's because in the Canada and the El Salvador matches, we saw them kind of packing it in a little more and taking their opportunities whenever they could counter. But also with respect to the 5-2-3 in the 11 itself, we saw a lot of changes, a lot of additions to the starting lineup, including Ricardo Pepi. We also saw James Sands and George Bello as well make their debuts in World Cup qualifying for the U.S. But I really want to touch base with both of you guys with respect to what happened with Weston McKennie. We saw him in the El Salvador match. Obviously, there was no Christian Pulisic for the El Salvador match. But Weston McKennie was clearly getting the best of the opportunities with respect to trying to put a goal on the board. And then we find out before the Canada match that McKennie is not going to play due to the fact that he was violating team rules. And we later find out that it was in regards to violating team protocol, COVID protocol, to which he posted on social media that he apologized basically to his whole country for letting them down. Rob, do you feel that in this situation that the U.S., that Greg Berhalter and the U.S. administration made the right decision in sitting him for these 2 matches, or after the disappointment of 4 years ago, they still should have let him go out there and play?
It's a tough call because you implement these policies as a team, and you have these protocols as a team. You're expected to follow these protocols regardless of any situation. You are supposed to look out for your team. So no, I kind of agree with sitting him for these 2 games. Normally I'm in favor of, you got to do what's best for your team. And obviously Weston McKennie, very important player, very important to Team USA. But he did let his teammates down when the rest of his team was complying. So he didn't comply. You let him, and you have to suspend him. So they did the right thing, and now he can learn from this. He'll come back in 4 weeks, and we will see how he responds to being sat for the last 2 games. And I would imagine it would be very strong.
Mike, do you agree?
I agree. I mean, no player is bigger than the team. But when they talk about building a culture, it's about building accountability as well. It doesn't matter who it is. You broke protocols like this, you broke the rules, you have to get punished for it. And it wasn't just once. Supposedly, it was multiple violations of the COVID protocol. And also, it was an issue back in Juventus a couple months ago. For his club in Italy, where he hosted a party that was against a dinner or something like that, that was against Italy's COVID protocols. But maybe you could explain that away. But this one, this incident, multiple violations or whatnot. It's really disappointing for a guy that coming into this window was being considered to have the captain's armband, and then he pulls a stunt like this. Rob said everybody else was complying. It's 1 week of your life, 3 huge matches for your country to, go contribute to avenging the 2017 disappointment, and you couldn't be able to hold it together. It should have showed a total lack of leadership from a guy who was considered to be high character in this program. He's a huge guy in this program going forward, but hopefully he learns from it. He comes back next window. Hopefully, it's motivation for him to be better for him and his teammates.
Mike, we spoke a little bit before. I mean, we really kind of just touched on it, but I want to elaborate a little more on with respect to the U.S.'s goalkeeping situation and the fact that Zach Steffen, their projected starting goalkeeper, has not been there for the first 3 matches, and they've turned to Matt Howard now to starting goal, and he's looked every bit the part. So when Steffen comes back, is he automatically the starter, or do you stick with your guns and stick with the guy who's really been so stable in goal? And are you surprised with the performances that he's put out so far?
I'm not completely surprised. I guess it surprises people because he coming in and before the Gold Cup, he didn't have as much international experience, but playing for the New England Revolution, I mean, he's putting up historic numbers in terms of MLS history, in terms of shot stopping. So he's been fantastic for New England. He's one of the best goalies, if not the best goalie in the MLS. Zach Steffen, in terms of coming back from injury, no, he's not a lock to come back into the starting lineup. When you're selecting guys for a national team, it's got to be guys who are playing, who are contributing to their team, who are the hot hand, etc. And Zach Steffen, I'm surprised there are rumors of him signing a new contract at Manchester City because he's not playing there. He's coming off of injury, and he's not really going to play that much, while guys like Matt Turner and Ethan Horvath are playing week in, week out at their respective clubs. They're doing really well. Matt Turner hasn't missed a beat in terms of you wouldn't be able to tell whether it's Steffen or Turner there with how good he's doing. He's making the necessary saves, made a huge one tonight after the U.S. got the equalizer. So he's looked every bit the part. I don't see why they should move away from him.
Rob?
Yeah, Mike's right. I think this is absolutely correct. I think that Steffen needs to come back and earn that spot right now, because how can you say Turner hasn't made all the right moves, especially tonight? I mean, you think about you think about what happened in this game, and it's just a matter of he was clutch. He came up with that. It was a huge save. It was a game-changing save because it was maybe 90 seconds after the US had just tied the game up, and it was an incredibly timely save. And I think that he showed that he can step up in those big moments. Now, look, let's not split hairs here. Honduras is not ranked that high in the FIFA ranking. This is a game the U.S. was supposed to win comfortably, and they did win comfortably. But still, being a goalie in soccer, you face powerful shot. You can face a powerful shot against any team, and that was a powerful shot. And he made a big save. So you know what? I don't see how we can't just run. Why the U.S. can't just run with this and essentially make Stefan come back and try to earn it back. There's a lot of qualifiers left, so I guarantee he'll see some time. But to say he'll be the outright starter, no.
And I think it's always tough too, Rob, just to flat out, even though Honduras was ranked low in the FIFA rankings, just to win on the road. That's always just, it's always about winning at home. And we didn't see the U.S. the other night win at home against Canada, and they come out and they win on the road at Honduras. And it's funny when I had mentioned before and asked you guys about Turner, I had mentioned him as Matt Howard, and I'm like, I guess I'm making the comparisons already to Tim Howard, thinking that this guy is the next Minister of Defense here for the U.S. men's national team. But nevertheless, guys, let's touch a little bit before we kind of start to wrap this up here about Greg Berhalter. And obviously, I don't think in any of our minds here, Rob, that he's earned a place back in our hearts to say that this is the guy that should be leading the charge for this program. What do you need to see out of this next wave, or I should say this next qualifying window, to make you believe that Berhalter is still the right guy at the wheel?
Wins. It's as simple as this. Win the games you're supposed to win. If we want to be realistic here, all 3 games were supposed to be wins. They got 1. Now, granted, they didn't lose. They did not lose any of the games, which is very important. They did not lose, so that's definitely something to stress. But it really should have been 3 wins. It was not 3 wins, and at that point, it comes down to manager decisions. When you look back and really break down all 3 games, manager decisions are what made the difference in all 3. You can see that Berhalter changed things up a little bit against Honduras last night, and honestly, it paid off. Like he didn't wait until the 80th minute to finally sub some players out. He did not like what he saw in the first half, so he immediately went to the bench. He's like, "You guys go do it," and lo and behold, every single sub did something. Every single player that came into that game tonight contributed to that victory. So that showed a good managerial decision by Greg Berhalter. We got to see more of that. We need consistency. That's what we as United States fans need to see from him. We need to see consistency. He's going to be here in 4 weeks. Because they won tonight, he is going to be the manager for this team for the next window. So winning is what the United States needs to see in this next window.
The manager for the U.S. team for the next 4 weeks, just off the Honduras win. Mike, I got to get your take on it.
Well, I think in terms of Greg Berhalter, nobody's ever been satisfied with him ever since he's been hired. After Jurgen Klinsmann and that disaster, and of course Bruce Arena not being able to finish the job, he was always going to be gone. And it was like, you're not going to go with another foreign guy. That didn't go well with Klinsmann. It was who's going to be the guy. And it was, Greg Berhalter winds up as the guy. And so coach with Columbus, who made it to the MLS Cup final, but didn't win or whatnot. Nobody's ever been satisfied with him until this summer's Nations League and Gold Cup. And all of a sudden he gets this hype or whatnot. Maybe a bit rightfully so, but he was getting a lot of praise. And then you come into this window and it's, everybody's brought back down to earth. His tactics is all over the place. He's experimenting with guys probably in which he shouldn't have. I thought James Sands was a bad experiment for tonight. He was good in the Gold Cup, but he just did not look on everybody. He just looked a step lower than everybody's level tonight. That was a peculiar decision. He just it's really strange because everybody, and we talked about his great adjustments at halftime, but why did he even need to make those adjustments? It was pretty obvious that should have been the lineup, or something similar to that should have been the lineup, rather than, as I mentioned before, Tyler Adams starting out wide, James Sands and Kellen Acosta, two more defensive-minded midfielders, guys who really can't distribute. That's not their game, being in the middle, and the midfield non-existent in the first half. So he's got some questions in the next 4 weeks to really answer tactically. Go on to that nerd board and really go into your tactics and whatnot, and figure out a way to consistently make this team continue to play more direct, more efficient as they were in that second half, taking advantage of every opportunity. Tyler Adams was fantastic in the middle of midfield. But, just on Berhalter himself, like Rob said, he's going to be the coach now. He earned that, for at least a couple of more games. And he's got to make the best out of it. He's got to do, like I said, and make this team continue to be more efficient and more direct. Honestly, the biggest thing they need from the next window, that clock is just saying, just praising a great U.S. win, obviously, of course. The next three games, the next window, I just project it out now. You always say, whether it was this window, I thought 7 to 9 points would have been a success. They got 5. I say certainly 7 is successful. Get 2 wins against Jamaica and Costa Rica. Panama will be a tough game. They just played Mexico really close tonight. They got a tough 1-1 draw at home. That's going to be tough. I won't be totally disappointed if you get 2 wins and a draw against Panama in that window. So that's what needs to happen going forward for the U.S.
Rob, why don't you wrap it up here for us, and just to follow up on what Mike's saying on what you're expecting from this next round of qualifying. Aside from the wins, obviously, in a perfect world, we'd love to see 9 points. We were hoping to see 9 points in the first round, but we ended up with 5. And that step above where we were 4 years ago. More, we should be there. More for what are your hopes and ideas for the U.S. team as we head into the next qualifying window?
Yeah, this next window is going to be a little tricky. I mean, look, Panama is definitely a sneaky team. You can't underestimate them. They are a very good team. I think Mike's right. They're going to really make it a hard game. I would not be surprised if it were to end in a draw, but those are the kinds of games you need to try and steal. You need to try to steal those 3 points. You need to try and get them. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's something you got to try to do. Jamaica and Costa Rica have to be 2 wins. There's anything less than 6 points from those 2 games is unacceptable. You trump them in every single aspect of talent, skill, everything. That you are the better team in every aspect. You do not come away with less than 3 points there. Panama gets a little tricky, so I do think a minimum of 7 points is important here, and that will be a bit. 7 points will be ideal in trying to get closer to clinching one of those World Cup qualifying spots.
Well, Rob, Mike, first off, thank you guys so much. Our first ever instant reaction here to discuss the 2022 World Cup qualifiers for the U.S. men's national team, as they have just concluded their first opening, or should say their opening window here in CONCACAF in the octagonal here, as we look forward to Qatar next winter. And hopefully we will have more of these instant reactions as we go along. Rob and Mike, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Take care, everybody.
Great night.
And don't forget the end of it, but that our usual show, the Primetime Rundown, returns on Friday, September 17th at 7 p.m. And until then, for Rob DeLuca, Mike Zabo, I'm Ian Schreier. and we'll see you next time.